Thank you, Aaron, for the reminder. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. So my name is Don Wigington. I am the Vice President of Sports and Health for Special Olympics Wisconsin, and I am joined tonight with several very talented and wonderful staff that have helped me and worked together on this plan. We have close to, what, over 100 people now? We're 107 people on this meeting. So because of that, with so many people, we're gonna keep everybody muted at this point in time. If you have a question during the presentation, go ahead and type it into the chat session section, and then staff will read it off at appropriate times. A couple other things. I just want to mention that also anybody will have the opportunity to speak at the end. If you have questions or just want to have a comment, we will use the raise the hand feature again, because we have so many people. If we unmute everybody, it would be a complete mess. I would add that, again, we welcome any comments and opinions, but please be respectful. I know many of you have questions, and I'm pretty sure all of you have opinions. And I can guarantee you that for every opinion held, there's somebody else out there with the opposite and equally passionate view. So we want to kind of use these meetings tonight first as a way to present the Back to Play plan, and then again take questions, comments, and this is something that we're going to kind of work through. I also, before we get started, I do want to say that I'm extremely proud of the SOE team that have been working on this. Again, there's a lot of staff. We should have put little banners up for all the staff. Sometimes many people hear names and they don't know everybody, but a very talented group of people have put this together. And I will say that it was done in a time of great stress. And at times we were literally passing projects from one staff to another as we kind of balanced our professional and personal lives. This is also kind of a work in progress. We will learn and we will undoubtedly make some adjustments along the way. We value our partnership with the local programs, and we want to work with you during this return to play plan, and that will be something that comes up a lot throughout this presentation. And finally, I just want to thank all of the people that contributed to early versions, some agency managers, some coaches. Thank those that offered insight and opinions, and as well as those that just kind of sent in words of encouragement and support as we put all this together. So thank you for that. So on with the show. I'm going to share my screen. This will be, like I said, very much a presentation during the first part. We will incorporate questions throughout and then have question and answers at the end. So, all right, Brittany, thumbs up. You can see the screen. All right. So here's the agenda. It's a pretty aggressive agenda. We're going to start off with some guiding principles that a lot of this plan we have worked with SOI along the way, and we also will have a message from our Athlete Input Council. This is being driven also by the athletes because it is for the athletes, and so it's very important to us that they are part of the discussion. We'll then kind of jump into the phases, the return to play phases. We're going to spend some time talking about the higher risk, which athletes and coaches may be at higher risk, and things that should be considered. We'll talk about the participant release form that all of the athletes and coaches that participate will need to sign. We'll talk a little bit about education, how we plan to help the coaches and agencies as they get ready to go back to play. We'll talk a little bit about the screening process that will need to be done for those that do in-person practices, some practice guidelines. I think Jason will jump in and talk a little bit about the season overview. We got some pretty exciting things planned for all different levels, everything from virtual in your backyard or in your house to out with small groups. And then talk a little bit about the SOE Live programming that we've been doing. And then Brittany will talk a little bit about the fitness and some future, some additional coaches training that we're going to require during this time period. So as I mentioned, we worked side by side with SOI on a lot of this, kind of took their lead when there was not a lot of information available. And so they wanted to start their plan the same way, where basically everything that we do is for the athletes, and so the health and safety of all of the members of the movement are important. But this is an organization that is for and by people with intellectual disabilities. And so its guidance must be inclusive and directed at those with special needs and people with ID, which is again why the Athlete Input Council athletes are always invited to these meetings, and they will be going forward a part of all of these meetings, and presenting, giving their voice to what we're doing. This is based off a lot of information from World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control, state, local guidelines. These all serve as minimum standards. We kind of look at what's out there and adjust that based on what we feel is appropriate for our athletes. And to point out the reality that this guidance is based on current medical information that changes. And so as that information changes, we may need to continue to evolve what we're doing and what we're offering as well. And finally, this takes a guided approach that's dependent on transmission rates, and we'll talk a little bit about how to kind of monitor some of those things. And finally, this is all of our responsibility. This isn't just us, and it's not just us telling agencies what to do and athletes what to do. We all play a part in this. And so in order to be successful and keep our athletes safe, it's going to be something that we all have a hand in. Sorry. All right, I am going to turn it over to, I think David Thompson is going to talk a little bit about some things. Is he unmuted?
I'm good.
You're good? All right, David.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So the AIC is made up of 2 athletes from each region who have attended leadership workshops. Each member commits to a 3-year term. We meet monthly to provide an athlete's perspective on current topics. And this current topic is the COVID that we're all facing. And first of all, I just want to give a shout out to all the staff. Just hearing Don talk, you know, to be an athlete and hear all the hard work going around, it just means the world to me. So this message goes out to every single athlete. I mean, not every athlete, but every single coach, agency manager. Everyone on the Athlete Input Council understands that coaches are in a really difficult position to keep us all safe. We support you in your decisions 110% about everyone's well-being. And that doesn't just include us athletes, that includes you as well, our coaches. It would be so hard to deny individual athletes like myself due to risk, if this means none of the team can practice until all of us can. We support that. And one of the things that I'm just grateful for is having every, awesome coaches and awesome, and Special Olympics Wisconsin just to keep us all rolling. Because if it wasn't for you guys, we really wouldn't know what to do. So on behalf of every single person on the AIC, thank you for everything you do, and stay safe.
Thank you, David. We appreciate that. And again, I echo back with what you guys do, and it's amazing, and it's great to be part of this with you guys. I think, was it Ed or Megan? Did they want to say a couple words too? Are they on?
Yeah, hi Don. This is Ed.
Hey Ed.
Yeah. We are doing the Healthy Athlete Messenger training, and I'm having it in Oshkosh here, and that's something each agency can be involved with. And I've learned a lot through the healthy athlete training, like how much water I drink and how much nutrition, and in this next training we're going to learn mental awareness, and it's just a really cool program. And on a side note, I might not come back right away to compete because of my cerebral palsy, because I'm kind of high risk, but I'm looking forward to virtual, and I support, and I echo David's sentiment. I support all the coaches and the tough decisions that has to be made, because we never want to turn away athletes. We all love and support Special Olympics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And again, I think as we get through this process, people will hopefully start to see that we will still have options for anybody at any comfort level. When we get to the seasons, Jason's going to talk about things that you can do in your home, in your backyard, as well as things for people that do feel a little bit more comfortable going out. So hang in there, Ed. We're working on all different options for you. Megan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You have a couple things you want to say?
Yeah, so in my no, I went to district, but I know it's not that. Agency just got done with Carla from UW-Madison doing a healthy research seminar where we put together like a health story and stuff like that and learn about research. And I know Jeannie and I have talked about also expanding that throughout the state as well. So start to look for in the 2-hour-long sessions for like twice a week for 2 weeks. And so we're going to start looking at expanding it around the state.
That's great. Very neat stuff you guys are doing. So proud of you. And I think also Jeannie's always looking for new members, right, Jeannie? And
Absolutely.
yeah. So we always encourage any athlete to apply for that and look for extra opportunities. So thank you again. I really appreciate that. And I hope, those 3 athletes, as well as many more that I know are on this call. One of the neat things that has happened, I mentioned this earlier, we've been doing a lot of these kind of live shows, these SOE live shows. And I know many, many athletes around the state, but I don't know them all. And there have been some really neat, people. Reezy, I know you're on here. I didn't know you very well until she started hanging out with us on Wednesday night at the show and a couple other things. And even Ed, being able to talk to him more and hear his story. So we have so many wonderful athletes, and we will be talking about safety and different options for them throughout this process. But again, thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right. Well, what most of you are waiting for is kind of going through the different phases. So SOI had put out a phase plan, and one of the things that makes it very difficult, not only in our state but around the U.S., is that this pandemic has been affected different states differently, and so rural states originally were a little more open, and some were closed, but things changed. We kind of settled on what we thought would be a 4-phased approach to return, and we'll go through each of those different phases. But it took a lot of, we looked and we thought 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and ultimately settled on 4, which we thought would be manageable for our state. And we looked at a lot of guidance, mostly from SOI, but again, also CDC, Wisconsin Department of Health Services, looking at multiple authorities around the state. I will say that when it comes to the phases, there have been many questions in terms of, well, who decides what phase we're in? And I will say it's the state office, it's Special Olympics. And I shouldn't even say the state office, because the state office is everybody that's in Special Olympics. SOE. And so while I say that, it may sound like, oh, they're the big boss, they're going to tell us what to do. This truly is us wanting to work with local programs and trying to find the best methods for participants to safely practice. So it is possible that we will have different local programs practicing under different phases. It wasn't originally what we wanted, but again, we have to look at the landscape, and we have to let the agencies know that we are partnering with you. This is something that we really want, and if there's things, again, that you don't see, come talk to us. Let's work this out. This is something that we want to, it's always most important that we feel that the athletes and the coaches and the participants are safe, but we do want to work with everybody. And the other thing is we are tied to kind of what local guidance is as well. So what, if you're in Dane County, could be totally different than if you're in Dodge County, or Milwaukee County, or up in Eau Claire, or Stevens Point. I mean, we are looking at a map of all counties around the state, and we're going to be constantly evaluating where all the agencies are practicing, which is why the intent to play was so, so important. Because again, we want to be with you every step of the way during this process. And then we have to know that there's times when we may have to go backwards in the phases as well. So the phases are listed as basically phase 0, which is when we were basically sheltering at home, and where technically we are until the 1st. So starting on the 1st, we call phase 1 small group activities. This is where you can gather in groups of 10 or less. The activities, they can resume, but you have to follow the guidelines that we're presenting on physical distance. We're going to be talking about sanitation protocols, and we're going to be talking about screening that has to be done. So on one hand, there are many other counties across the state where you could jump into phase 2. We want it, well, SOI says we have to stay in each phase for 2 weeks, but this 2 weeks in phase 1 is really going to allow us to kind of help and learn as groups start getting together. And that's why, again, Brittany will talk about having these meetings weekly. We'll talk about what's mandatory, what's not. The most important thing is to know that we're there with you 100% all along the way. If you want us to come out to your practices, we want to learn too. Like, we want you next week maybe to come back and somebody's that's practicing saying, hey, we tried doing this and somebody showed up without a mask. What should we do? Or we ran out of disinfectant. Do you know another place to get it? Or should we hold off for a week? I mean, those are the things where we're going to be with you all along the way. I will tell you that based off, I think 80% of the agencies that have responded, I haven't looked since yesterday morning actually, but of those, there's about 30% that plan on doing something. Numbers are all over because you're kind of guessing, and we completely get that. But again, we're going to be able to use that information, send that information out, be in constant contact with all the agencies that are planning to do something. That doesn't mean if you said no and you start to see and things look good, you can come and say, hey, I actually changed my mind. That's fine. Give whatever region you're in, whoever your contact is, call them, call somebody and let them know you plan to start. But the important thing is that we know exactly who is doing what. So again, it's not to kind of micromanage everything. It's the help, and it's for us to learn as well. So the plan originally was after 2 weeks, we would go into phase 2. We're still looking at that, but again, we might have to modify that, where I don't think in Dane County that could happen, but it could happen in some other counties. We are also kind of looking at a representative of counties around the state to help us make these major decisions of when we would say anybody could go on to the next phase. And so we continue to do that. And what we see now is that there's a good likelihood we will be able to go to phase 2 in most parts of the state. As you all probably know, things can change very rapidly. And so we won't really make that call until probably late next week. Unfortunately, we don't want to, we've been in the situation already where we've said one thing and then the next day we've had to say something else because it changes that fast. So just kind of be on the lookout, but at least know that if you're holding out or you're having struggles with, you have a large group and you don't think you can do groups of 10. And, some of the questions on the frequently asked questions was how far do groups have to be apart and all these types of things. Remember, everything is based on safety. And so we feel that we have to put in some things, because if we don't put in your 2 groups have to be 50 meters apart or something like that, we know that, you turn around and there could be a couple co-mingling groups, and we don't want that. And if you feel that that's not right, you'd rather just wait, well then know that maybe you only have a couple weeks to have to wait for that in your area. We will also be giving you the tools to help research some of the same things that we'll be looking at as well. And then at that point, even at 50 and under, there could be potentially nearby agencies. They may want to get together if they decide to say do bocce or cornhole. Again, as long as we keep it under, let us know what's going on, we can start facilitating some of that. Phase 3 will be what we'll probably talk about, some of the more in-person activities that we'd like to plan for later in the year, which could be small golf gatherings, as well as the punt, pass, and kick that we'll be doing, different things like that. So that would fall under phase 3. I know it's a bit ambiguous because we don't give an exact size, because it's really hard to kind of make those predictions as things are going on. And so rather than putting a number in there and feeling we had to then 3 weeks later change it to another number, we just kind of say, this is what we're looking at for phase. That basically would be larger groups, and it would be things that we would be facilitating in terms of what you might call a small invitational or small tournament. Phase 4 is basically things back to normal, which I don't anticipate happening for a while. We will talk primarily today, or not primarily, but almost all just through the end of 2020. We know we need to start digging into 2021 very soon, because there's the winter game season, and we know how big basketball is. But right now, the first thing is just a matter of trying to get some of the agencies that want to get back to play back out there, and having more options for those that still want to stay home but do virtual opportunities. So do we have any questions coming in through the chat at this point?
Nothing's come in yet. No.
I wowed them over. Okay, so this is a part where I want to spend a little bit of time on, because it's very important. And I want to thank the people the agency managers that are in the agency management committee. I've met with them one night, I don't know, probably a couple months ago now. They looked at some of the early drafts of this, and we had some discussion on who is at high risk. There are some states that are basically banning and not doing anything, and there are other states that are kind of more open. We're taking a more middle of the road approach, where we want to make sure we educate to the best of our ability, and that we help all of the coaches and agency managers educate to the best of their ability, and that the athletes understand to the best of their ability, and that parents and caregivers can help in this as well. It's not shirking responsibility. It's providing the information that people need to make informed choices. And then we as an organization are there to help and support. But as I mentioned before, there's difference of opinions on what we should be doing. And every day I get an email saying we're crazy for doing anything. And then the next hour I get an email saying, why haven't we started yet? So there's a wide range of opinion out there, but we took the approach where we think that we can best protect the athletes with what we're doing. We're going to help monitor it, but we want to continue to educate. And so I think what I want to do is I want to go through the list, but there's one particular that kind of hits home for a lot of our athletes. So, and this is a lot of our athletes, and a lot of our coaches as well. And I think that we need to start having honest discussions about who falls into these high-risk categories, and if it's worth it for them to come back and do anything where there's groups. And maybe some might feel safer in a group of 10, but if we got to 25, they wouldn't feel safe. And we have to be able to respect that. And again, we are going to offer something for those people that still don't want to go out and do that. But if you look at this list of high risk, the biggest one that really jumps out is that people with obesity. And it's calculated as a BMI, body mass index, which isn't the best calculation in the world. Missy can go on for hours about it. But it is a simple way by using height and weight to come up with a number that kind of puts you into a category. And it, by all means, is not perfect, but it's a way to measure. But beyond that, I think that we have to start having a discussion about the general health of our athletes. And when you do that BMI calculation, which we've done because we have medicals for everybody, 75% of our athletes basically fall into that category. That's huge. And we have statistics that look at that and look at the health disparities that happen because of that. And there's data out there that shows that athletes, that people with ID die 16 years earlier than those without ID. Well, they're not dying from intellectual disability. They're dying from some of the health issues that can arise from that population. And so what you will see after this, and as we kind of move, we've been moving more towards health and fitness and nutrition awareness. we are going to be doing that more and more. I honestly believe that even though we're a sports organization, we have an obligation to help our athletes live not only healthier lives, but longer lives. And, you know, as I mentioned, I know a lot of athletes around the state. They're my friends, and I do not want my friends to die any earlier than they have to die, just like I wouldn't want my family to. So I don't want to get too, you know, deep into that, but it is something that is very, very important to me and to the staff, and it's something that we're really going to be working on going forward, no matter any of this. So one of the things that the AMC brought up was the possibility of having a release form, because they were not comfortable. Some people are not comfortable having those conversations. Part of me says it doesn't matter. We need to be having those conversations. We owe it to the athletes. But when it comes down to picking who can and who can't, I completely understand that is a very, very difficult decision. I was able to have a conversation with an athlete that fits in that category over the weekend. I don't want to name names, but we had a real good conversation about, should this person be doing anything right now? And it ultimately came down to, no, you know what? I probably shouldn't. I think I have some things I need to work on. Can you guys help me work on it? And I said, yep. And so those are the types of conversations we need to have. But in the meantime, we do have athletes that are their own guardian. We have other people that want athletes to get back to doing things. So what we have is what we're calling a release form, where prior to anybody practicing, and we're going to have coaches do this as well, they will have to fill this form out, and we'll go through it in a minute because it is part educational as well. But we did get some feedback early. We set up a special email site, and they're going to go in directly, that Sam's going to put them, she's going to tie them to the athlete medicals. She will eventually be able to run reports for agencies. So that way you'll be able to go, who's got their form in? But we heard early on from several agencies that felt that they wanted a little bit more control, especially early on. They wanted access to those forms first. And so, again, that's a great example of us trying to work together. We can do that. If that works better for the agencies, you'd rather have them go directly to you when you start practicing and then send them into that COVID address, that's fine as well. It's going to take us a little bit of time to kind of get in the process of collecting these new forms. So Sam's not going to be able to run a report right away. She's still got to take the time to enter it into our database. So in the meantime, however we can work together to make sure that the forms are being filled out, that they're being understood, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and then sent back, that we, again, will work with the programs on that.
Hey, Don, before you move on, we are getting a few questions. Just real quick, so if anyone has any sports-specific questions, we will touch on that a lot later in the presentation, so just hang tight to those questions for now. Someone did ask, for the 10 or less people in phase 1, does that include coaches and volunteers?
Yeah, it does. And that's what makes it, and we understand it makes it really, really difficult. It does, and it has to do with, again, we're trying to keep things to a minimum to begin with as we kind of learn this process. There's going to be the screening process we'll talk a little bit about. There's been lots of questions about cleaning, what you have to clean, what you don't have to clean. And so we'll talk through that. So yes, it is include. So technically with the chaperone ratio, right, 4-to-1, that would be a maximum of 8 athletes and 2 coaches. Now, we know the realities of the situation. We know that sometimes athletes show up. We know that caregivers come. We talked about, you know, if a caregiver comes, they stand there, they're considering the count. Technically, they do. And so you really should discourage from that. On the other hand, we know that there are athletes that need extra support. That's the whole point of the one-on-ones, right? So if you're not abusing the system, we're not going to worry about it. It's really, you know, if we happen to show up at a practice and there's, you know, 20 people standing around and, you know, some of them don't have masks on, those are the things that we really need to worry about. Again, it's for the safety of the athlete. But if you've got a couple parents there that are extra, they're off to the side as much as they can, they're wearing a mask, or if you actually need extra support with somebody, again, we're not trying to nitpick everything. We want to work with you, but we want to try to follow the guidelines the best that we can. Does that make sense, I guess?
Yep.
I'll say that.
You got some long-winded answers for us.
Sorry.
It's all right. We got a lot of questions. So another question related to the new mask mandate.
Mhm.
I believe we'll cover that later. Is that right? In the screening protocols
Well,
and whatnot?
Okay, not really. I mean, that came out after we kind of had this prepared. And so I have not gone into it too much. My guess is that there will be a lawsuit filed against that, just like there was about the back to play plan originally. So at this point, we are saying that people have to have a mask when they're practicing. That doesn't mean that if you're doing something strenuous, you can't have it down, or when you're doing your activity, but when they come into practice, they should have it on. Coaches should have it on at all times if possible. If they're actively, if you're out there demonstrating something, yeah, I would probably pull it down. We're asking you to practice, make sure you've got your distance, your physical distance. If you're in that situation, again, we're not here to be the mask police or the social distance police. We are providing these guidelines. There are expectations that you're following them, but ultimately, remember, we're doing this for the safety. Whether again, I will come out and say, some people think we're overreacting or underreacting. We've got a measured approach to what we think we're doing to keeping participants safe.
And then someone asked about a copy of this presentation. I can send a follow-up email to everyone that has registered with this presentation, but then we'll also have the recording online.
Yep.
And then it looks like we got a couple more. And something about the medicals. So will we be able to email the reports as we do the medicals? I believe Sam answered already, but yes, they can be emailed. And then can we send the release forms as one document, or do they need to send them separately by athlete's name? And it is okay to send multiple forms within one email. Thanks, Sam.
I would always defer to Sam, but I would think they could send in multiples at one time and she would just print them off separately. So she's
Yep,
nodding her head yes.
She replied.
Good. I don't want to cross Sam. What she says is golden. So.
And then Sam just wants to reiterate, because of another question, that yes, the COVID participant form is separate from the regular medical and release form. So it is an additional form that we are requiring. And otherwise, I think those are all the questions so far.
So this is actually what is on the participant release form. And again, it really, if anybody goes to the SOI website, they have something called a risk assessment and athlete code of conduct. It's the same form. For us, it was just easier to call it it still has the VOVID, sorry. Somebody didn't, so COVID-19 participant release form. The original form is correct. But it really is to be educational. And I will say there's a video that you think I'm long-winded. It's a 9-minute video that talks about this, but it's done by Special Olympics athletes that kind of go through and show how, again, part of this is trying to the best of their ability to understand what they're kind of agreeing to. And the first one is that there is a risk that they could get sick. But the other is, again, more educational. It's about teaching people if they have symptoms, they will stay home and not go to activities. And we can dive into later, we could spend a long time just on the days. There's a 7-day and 14-day that gets people a little bit confused. But it really boils down to, if you have symptoms and you're not COVID-19 positive, then you can come back. If you know you're exposed, but you don't have symptoms, it takes 14 days. And that is because if you've been exposed, it could take 14 days from that point for the virus to kind of present itself. So again, I don't want to dive too much into that, but somebody had asked about that. That there's education, and we'll talk about, there's more education than just this, that they know that there's that they're going to have to do a screening at practices, that they got to keep 6 feet away from people, that they're going to wear a mask and they don't have to wear it during active exercise, washing hands, things like that. So part of it is to help, and to not just say sign here, or I'm your guardian, I'm going to sign here. It's I'm your guardian, I'm going to sign for you. But let's sit down and talk about some of these things, and make sure that they understand, and then support them while they're at practice.
And
So,
just, oops, sorry,
yeah, go
just a reminder, Sam made a great point in the chat that this form is actually required for all participants, meaning that includes coaches and volunteers that will be at practice, unified partners, everyone. Thanks, Sam.
so a little bit about education. The single most effective way to limit the spread is to require people that are sick or having symptoms to stay home. Now that's easier said than done. I've been a coach too. And so, you know, you got people that come and they're sniffling and, oh, I'm fine. It's difficult. You have to kind of stress to the athletes, if they're not feeling well at all, do not come. If they've got a runny nose, do not come. And it's going to be hard because maybe somebody has hay fever and now they can't come to practice. But again, if we're thinking about the safety of all of the athletes and the coaches and the volunteers that are there, the best thing is just to not have them come. And then the other thing is for you know, us to educate you and coaches to educate the athletes and caregivers about what the symptoms and signs are. And so those are listed there. I'm not going to go through every one, but be aware of those and be always, you know, talking to people. Hey, if they got any of these things, do not bring them. You know, at that point, if it's something where you have shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, I'd probably have them go directly, make an appointment to have them looked at. So again, prior to any activity, there's three things. One is that you kind of understand the risks for high risk conditions, the risk of participation, the requirements that anybody that has symptoms just should stay home, and then probably go in for further evaluation. And then the third is, we didn't talk too much yet about that, but it's just requirements for in-person gathering, you know, that they're going to have to separate. And we know how hard that's going to be to keep people from hugging and high-fiving and elbow bumping and fist bumping and all that stuff. And it's going to be hard to explain that we can't do that right now. And it's for the safety of everybody. And it's different. And so that, and the fact that, you know, more than ever, people are going to have their own water bottles, you know, their own maybe sweat rag, and, you know, being more cautious than ever when you're coughing, that you cough into your elbow and all those types of things. So I guess, what are we doing to help everybody educate about this? And so one is obviously the release form. But right now, our marketing team is, they're working with us to put together a COVID-19 specific webpage. And that is going to be kind of your one-stop shop going forward for everything from COVID-19 to what sports we're going to be talking about, to new registration forms, to new calendars. Forget all the old stuff. I will tell you, again, this team is put together in a very short period of time. It's almost like recreating a Special Olympic season. After years of having the same kind of things happen again and again and again, it's all like starting from scratch. And so we're going to have everything available. There's a lot of videos that are available. There's some really good videos that SOI produced. Again, I mentioned the one on the release form by the athletes, but also on conducting a practice. And, you know, what are the things that you need to do to prepare for that? How do you wear a mask? All different things. So we're going to be putting all those in one spot. Again, coaches, athletes, parents can watch those. We're going to have a special resource folder. And in that folder are going to be all kinds of handouts, you know, things that Missy's gone through and looked at all different things for hand washing, for ways, again, practices, for any signage, you know, that you may need for helping run a practice, and if you're going to do a screening session. So we're going to have one place for all those things. And then the most important thing is to know to ask. Keep asking when you have questions. You will talk more about, we want to do these sessions weekly. It'll be, as the next time will be less me talking, more of all of you talking that decided to go and do something, and we'll work things out together. So a lot of that. The screening process, talk a little bit about that. We mentioned that it's going to have to be done before every practice. You will take their temperature, and then the actual document has more details, but basically you'll set up a station, athletes will come through. Most of you are probably already familiar with the 4 questions, because anywhere you go, you're asked this for the most part. But they take your temperature, and then you ask these questions. And then we have a form. I don't think I put the form on here, but we create a form that coaches will be able to have, where then you record all the names and the results to those questions, and then you hang on to those. We're not going to require those to be turned in. They're for you, and they're really for if for some reason somebody tests positive and they say, I was at a Special Olympics practice on this day at this location, you will be able to go back then and say, oh yeah, okay, these are the other people that were there, because that's what will happen with, that's what contact tracing is all about. Department of Health Services would, once they get a positive case, they have a team that kind of looks into some of these things. And it's not to be punitive, it's not to get anybody in trouble, it's just to kind of help learn where these people were at, who they were in contact with, and to inhibit any further spread of COVID. So the things to keep in mind is that if anybody answers yes to those questions, again, this is going to be hard. Have you been feeling sick? You know, some of our athletes might just have had a cough and think, yeah, I've been sick. Now they're in a quarantine. Again, I know how difficult this is going to be, but if they say yes, you are going to have to then isolate them from the group. You're going to have to find out how they got there, figure out how to get them home, and they will not be able to come back for 14 days. At that point, they won't need a note if they have not tested positive. The important thing is to just keep them away for a while, and that's going to be hard too. Participants that are found to have COVID-19 symptoms, they have to wait. Again, this is the whole thing of whether you've actually got it or you don't. 7 days after symptoms, they can come back. But the big thing here is that if anybody tests positive, they will have to get medical clearance before they can come back. Some of the things that we're learning that this, again, this COVID-19 can present itself to basically no symptoms to very serious symptoms, and a lot of in between. But one of the things they're finding is that even after the initial symptoms, people are having effects months after. So again, for the safety of those, whether it be an athlete or a coach, they need to send a form in. And if it's an athlete, then that will get Sam will attach that to the official medical records for the athlete. Just some things on practice guidelines. Again, this is all in the play that the return to play that we sent out. So none of this is really new, just the group activities. They must adhere to the maximum number based on the return, the 10 or less starting August 1st. Don't forget, you always have to keep that 4-to-1 chaperone ratio. We put this one in just for fear that we know that sometimes there's larger groups. Now, somebody asked me point blank, you know, if I had a larger group, what would I do? And I want to practice bocce. Well, if I had, say, 20 people and I had enough coaches, you could do shifts, right? Have somebody come in and run a couple shifts, so that way 10 come in at 9. Then you do your screening, they come in, they practice, they leave, you clean up, next group comes in. Now, if you got a big enough space, 50 meters really isn't that far. I mean, if a park, and again, if it's 45 meters, I'm not going to come out there and measure it. The idea is that you're trying to create 2 separate groups, that they don't commingle, that they're doing separate screening. That's fine. You can do that with 3 groups if you want. I mean, we're kind of looking at these types of things for if we have in-person competition. You know, how can we utilize large spaces? So again, work with us. We will work with you. Talk to us. What are you thinking about? Will this work? Will this not work? We're here to be a resource and to help you guys with this. To the greatest extent, maintain at least 6 feet from everybody. Again, that's that social distancing. Minimize gathering size. This is one where no spectators. This could be difficult. A lot of caregivers come. Some caregivers come and they drop off the athlete and you don't see them. Others hang around. Others want to be involved. Others don't want to be involved. It's just a matter of, especially in this tenant under, saying, hey, we're under these strict guidelines. Please do this for the safety of the athletes and our coaches that are out here giving of their time. Make sure that anybody that's out there, that again, that they're wearing masks if they are on the sideline, and just try to minimize it the best that you can. Wearing face masks, again, people say, well, I can't wear face masks when they're running. Well, no, you don't have to. If some athletes, you know, people know my son Tyler, he's tried running with a mask. I'm like, I don't know how the heck he's running, 5 miles with a mask on, but you don't have to do that. So what he's doing now is he's pulling one down, and then if he comes around somebody, he pulls it up. Same thing with practice, have them around, there's different types. that are available. There's some that are more popular, the neck ones, and I'm not going to get into. I'll let Missy and probably talk about what they should do about that. But again, we're looking at indirect contact. So again, we're looking at sports moving forward. We're not going to do team flag football where people are bumping into each other. We're going to do punt, pass, and kick. So that's no direct contact. No direct contact would also be with a bocce ball, right? If one person throws it, another person's bouncing their own ball off it. It's indirect. We sanitize after each throw. I mean, again, we're also working on those types of level of the rules for all the different sports that we're going to offer, and Jason will talk about that in a minute. Again, sharing equipment under certain circumstances, the Polino and bocce. Again, they're sharing it. They're not handing it from one person to another. One person uses it. It gets washed with a rag or something in between use. You're using hand sanitizer. Again, using common sense with some of these things, but sometimes it's not common sense for the athletes. And so we got to constantly be vigilant in how we, and how the volunteers are there working with the athletes. And again, making that sanitizer available, disinfectant wipes. This is, as some agencies have come back, said this is a barrier for them. They don't have the money for this. Mark Wolfgram has done a good job of kind of looking at the competition grants and reworking those to be able to use some of the money to help buy some of this stuff, including the no-touch thermometers. So if you're having some of those problems, Mark will be back in the office part-time next week. So reach out to him or, whoever you're used to reaching out to, your regional person, any of the athletic directors. We all want to help the best that we can. And then the small group training sessions should preferably take place outdoors. It's easier to social distance there. But if you have to have something indoors, if it's, bad weather or you just want to do that and you have a space, again, utilize spaces that have increased standards. Somebody said, well, what the heck does that mean? Well, when I was looking at a lot of plans early on, I looked at a lot of gym facilities, and there were gym facilities that kind of said, this is the way that we're running it. Anybody that comes in, they're going to use this towel. They're going to put their used towel over here. Same thing with bowling. I looked at a couple of bowling alleys, and they're like, if it's preferable to use your own shoes and ball, but if not, if you got a rent from us, you get the shoes, you take them over, you pick out a ball. If you touch a ball, you have to put that in the used pile. When you're done bowling, you leave, you don't touch anything. Our group will come in. So they actually have a plan, which is better than going to somewhere and Joe saying, oh yeah, I'll take care of it. Right? Not that, sorry, there's anything against anybody named Joe, but so the point is use those people that you can. And the other thing that came up is, do I really have to clean all the equipment? Well, sorry for whoever sent that question in. That was not really your voice. But I guess again, it's like, think about what you're doing. I'm not requiring you to get the hazmat suit out, but if you're at a park and you're at a bench, and it's like one of those, say, metal benches. Well, maybe I would wipe it down with a disinfectant cloth before, and then after we leave. It's those types of things that we're talking about. We're not talking about, going overboard. Again, just trying to do the things that we can do that you think are helping keep the safety for the athletes and the coaches and the volunteers. Make sure they're using their own water bottles, towels, things like that. Personal equipment should be cleaned with disinfectant before and after each use. So again, depending on the sport that you're doing, we are writing these specific rules. All the athletic directors are working in teams, and they each have sports they're responsible for, and they're working really hard of coming up with these kind of new rules. But some of them will be like, when you use a bocce, use your own set, But after you throw the Polino, make sure you clean that. Make sure people are standing on opposite sides of the field when they're doing that. Cornhole, bags, or whatever you want to call it, is another one. We're coming up with ways to make sure that you can squirt down some of the bags. Carla's been working on looking at different bags that may be waterproof, or just different things that will help keep the athletes and the coaches safe. Oh, sorry, I went too fast. The last one was avoid community equipment when possible. So yeah, again, it's like, I guess a community equipment would be that bench that you're using, or if there's, I would not use a water fountain. I'd make sure the athletes are coming with their own water, maybe bring some jugs, and again, just be thinking ahead of some of these things. So I guess I will kind of stop with a lot of the general stuff and see if there are any questions.
Just a few things to reiterate that kind of happened in the chat. So for the COVID release form, first of all, that will be available online. I can also include it in the follow-up email for ease, but it'll be on that COVID webpage that Don was talking about earlier. And participants 18 and older who are their own guardian can sign that form themselves, but anyone under 18 or not their own guardian should have the guardian sign. A couple questions about where to order supplies, specifically with the COVID grant that we have available. So Jody, thank you, Jody, because I didn't know that off the top of my head. There's a $250 max for that grant if you are in need of some additional funds to get supplies. As far as where you can order those things, we do have a supply info sheet with some recommendations, but there's not a specific place to order from through us. So just some recommendations for you as far as where to go and pricing and things like that.
And I will say that there were a few people that have sent me really for the thermometers saying, hey, does this look good? Or is this a good price? And a lot of them are off Amazon, and some were, 20 or 30 bucks. And my wife works in healthcare, and I showed her and she's like, yeah, it looks fine. So if you are unsure about things like that, just send them along, and we're here to help.
And then one last question was from Mike Schultz asking about parents at practice. So it is kind of a case-by-case basis, like Don said earlier, trying to keep it under 10 people, but if parents need to be there for additional support, or if they're standing further away, doing your best to maintain that social distancing.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think we're all set in the chat.
All right. Well, I'm sure at least my staff will be glad I'm done. So, all right. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason Blank, who's our Senior Director of Sports, and talk about some of the, again, exciting things that our athletic department, or athletic directors and team have all kind of been working on.
Yeah, thank you, Don, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I just want to reiterate a couple of things. One, I want to again thank the entire Special Olympics Wisconsin sports staff. We have put our heads together and in various different forms to try to come up with safe options to provide for our athletes and for agencies to get back together. And in doing that in a world that's a little different than what we left it when we had closed our doors on some of this competition stuff. So a huge thank you to the entire sports staff on that. And I also want to just reiterate kind of something that's been brought up in the fact that we all, these options will be there for those who want to, and we have a couple of different options in each of these sports with the varying degree of what people want to participate and how would they like to participate. We do understand that there are people who are not comfortable coming out and practicing and competing, and we want to have options for people doing that. We do understand that there are people who would like to, and that's why we wanted to create a wide spectrum of options that fall within the safety of this plan and these guidelines, but also know that with everything with the coronavirus, not just within Special Olympics, but everywhere, we've all had to kind of change our ideas of and perspectives of what we can and cannot do and what we're able to do at this point. And just note that when we talk about these sports seasons, we looked at opportunities that we could safely maintain some of these guidelines, whether it's social distancing or the ability to clean and disinfect between usage and all those type of things, which is why some sports may have been modified or not included that would normally be included in the fall. And I also just want to reiterate that these are temporary changes. These are something that we're doing through this return to play. And when we do hopefully get back to a point when we get back to a point where we can go back to closer to what was normal or to normal, that we do hope to get back to some of these sports seasons. But this is also a great opportunity for us to try some new things. And, and that's really what we've done as a sports staff, is try to look at the big picture here and also kind of think out of the box a little bit. And so that's where some of these things have come up. So if you say, I have not seen this sport before, or where did that come from? Some of these are a little bit out of the box from our traditional fall sports season. And that's a part of that is just the consideration of the health and safety of those participating in it, but also it also provided us an opportunity to try some new things. So kind of going through what's been on the return to play guidelines, it mentioned some Special Olympics Wisconsin approved sports. And like I said, we determined these sports by minimal contact. So we're talking about, there's a lot of team sports like flag football that we would traditionally see it, or volleyball, where it would be more difficult to minimize the risk of spread. And so we've either modified those or have not included those in this plan, just from a safety standpoint. It does not mean that we are done with those sports. Like I said, it's just from a safety standpoint for this return to play. And so the sports that we've decided as SOE approved sports for phases 1 and 2 is SoFit, which Brittany will touch base on later on, bocce, golf, punt, pass, and kick, cornhole, bowling, rings, and volleyball skills. So what we have done as a staff is we have adapted the rules for these sports to cover not only the way that they're going to be presented if we were able to get to a point of competition, but we've also included some additional COVID-specific guidelines in those rules. Like, for example, you look at bocce, and we're asking for athletes to use the same ball. They would not be swapping balls, with others at practice. So that may mean marking and then sanitizing between swapping if you were to change teams who are participating. Again, like punt, pass, and kick, it would include disinfecting the balls before switching to the next person who's using it. And it's just a way of, and then we've looked at ways to do all of the like the disinfectant and then social distancing when available for these sports. So when we release, we'll have the rules for each of these sports coming out on the website when the webpage comes up. The other resources that we're providing for each of these sports is an idea what those sports will look like in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So if you have so when we discuss it and say, hey, we've been in our 2 weeks of phase 1, we're now moving on to phase 2, you have a better idea of what that means. Does that mean that we are able to offer some sort of competition, which might mean that people that people would be able to maybe travel between agencies and compete against each other, or smaller regional events, and then hopefully get to a point where we may be able to have hold larger events for these sports, as we get further along, local programs can petition other sports, but we do not have the guarantee to be able to provide resources or competitions for those options. Like Don said, there's a little flexibility here where we understand as we look at counties and all that type of stuff, if there's, there may be some areas that are affected more than others, and that may determine a decision on that, as well as a practice of opportunities, what phase we're in, what competitions are offered. So that's just something to consider. So we decided to break these down into 2 different seasons, and I see somebody had asked what rings are. So there's a couple of new sports that I guess you'll see in this list. I should probably touch on those. So rings is there's 2 sports that we've been considering for our Aging Athletes program, and those are cornhole and rings, and we're offering them for everybody through this process. And rings is it's a ring toss competition. There's some specific rules to it. Essentially, there is a it's ring toss. You have plastic rings, and you'll be throwing them towards a target, and then you'll be able to keep score based on accuracy on that. And then a cornhole or bags, I think it's called a couple of different things around the state, around the U.S. Of what those are. And so it's the lawn game that you would see a lot of tailgates and all that type of stuff with the wooden boards and bean bags. That's typically a team sport with teams of 2 that would compete against each other in that as well.
And Jason, just to add, Mark messaged me separately, but Mark is kind of leading the way on the Aging Athlete sports, and well, for right now, they're all athlete sports. But there will be obviously rules coming out for those, and they'll be making videos as well for cornhole and rings, just because they are newer to a lot of people. So we'll have plenty of resources on those.
Perfect. Yep. And I know in the rules I've seen, it does have pictures, and so that will give a better idea to be able to see and understand what that looks like as well. Punt, pass, and kick is our adaptation for flag football. It's based off the rules of the NFL competition that they had held. So it is measuring the distance and accuracy of punts, pass, and kick. We're able to do that. It's kind of a similar format that you would see in like a softball throw, turbo jab type field. With some modifications on that. Again, those rules will be coming out. And when we look at some of these sports, the good news is, like as Don had mentioned, the 50-meter distance between groups does allow us to maybe be easier for us to host in-person competitions with large scale. Like if you look at, if those of you have been to the Neenah High School for the state flag football competition, there's a lot of space out there. We'd be able to spread out, and then the numbers would be able to be increased and stuff like that. And we'd manage that as well. So just to break it down, we just looked at the fall outdoor season, in which we are calling that for the months of August through October to include certain sports, and then the fall indoor season. And the sports that were chosen about that is basically just weather dependent, where a lot of those sports in the first few months are played outdoors. So then you would have a better opportunity to get those in when it's warmer. So they're broken down into the fall outdoor sports season is bocce, golf, punt, pass, and kick, cornhole, and then also SOFIT will be offered in both sports seasons. And then the fall indoor season there'll be bowling, rings, volleyball skills, and SOFIT. What I will say for all sports that we're offering, like I said, not only will we have a breakdown of what phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 will look like, we are also planning a virtual option for competition for each one of these sports. So if people are not comfortable or able to get to practices in person, they will be able to participate in some sort of virtual aspect of those competitions. For some sports, it's easier to make that look exactly like the competition, and for others, it'll be an adaptation for being able to use what you have around the house or nearby parks to compete in those things. The other thing that's exciting is that we'll have both seasons will include a virtual celebration, including virtual celebration events. So for that first season, the fall outdoor season, it looks like it'd be around the beginning to mid-October that we would have the virtual celebration events. And then for that second event, or the second season, it would be mid-December that we would be hosting these virtual celebrations. So what we want to do is try to make these feel as close to a normal sports seasons we have, but understanding that there are limitations for what we can offer in sizing and all of that type of stuff. So, is there any questions that have been popped up, Brittany, on the comment section?
Yeah, a couple. I've been trying to answer as we go. So you already answered the questions on rings and cornhole and things like that. So one person did ask, if they didn't indicate that on the intent to play, could they still participate in those? And the answer is yes, you can still participate in any sport, even if you didn't indicate it on the intent to play, especially now that you're getting more information on it.
But we will want to know.
Yes.
Yes.
Good point.
We are using that information to try to make plans for any sort of in-person type competitions we have. So, if you did not indicate it, it may depend. It may make a difference in where we choose to offer events. So it is very helpful to know which agencies are planning to offer which events or which sports.
Can an entire agency compete in a virtual competition if we are unable to compete in person?
Yeah, and yes, the idea from that virtual competition would be that you can do it together, again, following whatever phased practice guidelines that we have. But yes, you can get together and have the agency camaraderie and then still be able to compete in one way, shape, or form. I see Dan asked specifically about bowling averages, and I would say I believe that the bowling averages is going to look a little different, but again, I would just reference the rules when we have those come out here shortly.
And then, is there a state golf this year?
So what I can tell you is that we are still planning for some sort of in-person golf competition. We would have to get to a certain phase in order to make that happen safely. based on the numbers we've gotten from the intent to play, it does sound like that is a much more realistic possibility to have something in person. And Don, you can correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn on that. But I do think we could safely offer it. It may look a little bit different than our normal traditional golf outings have in the past, but we would be able to get people on the course and compete in person.
Yeah, I would say with all those things, again, we're held a little bit to what the different communities are doing and what different facilities. But I believe Carla and Nicole are working on golf, and so they're looking at some of the existing facilities, finding out kind of what's going on there, what their rules are. But yeah, so the plan is depending on we have created a plan with multiple contingencies for every sport. And so, yeah, we're trying to do what we can. And that's, the same thing with the punt, pass, and kick. I mean, that would take the place of I believe it's the same date Jody was originally thinking for the flag football. So again, we have to pass certain hurdles to get there, but we are working on the dates. We're working on working with the facilities. We know we have to kind of create new registration forms. So again, it's been incredible to see what the team has been able to do. And it feels like a long period of time, but it really hasn't been as we kind of really started diving into some of these things. So, yeah.
Yep. And I see a couple of the questions. Can bowlers bowl on their own and report scores to coaches? Really, I think that's going to be the majority of what that competition will look like. And what that means if they're bowling with their families or bowling as part of a team practice. Like I said, that's all going to be very clear in the rules and the setup that we come out. But that's what we're envisioning as far as bowling goes, is that you would be able to.
I know that definitely on the intent to play was the winner of what people want to do. We know we normally have close to 3,500 athletes bowling every year. So again, I think for that one, it's Michaela and Nicole, can't remember. So looking at possibly doing a league style where agencies would turn in scores on a weekly basis, or it could be done, again, they could get to some communities, they might be able to get together. Other communities might not, and they say, okay, athletes, caregivers, guardians, go out and bowl. The bowling alleys will usually print out scores, turn those in. The other thing that came up, because we know it's going to be hard to probably get everybody in with 3 scores a game, we're going to only collect 2 scores for each week, or again, however, they're still working on some of the final details, and they're more than welcome to speak up if they want.
Yep. Yeah, so did
There's
anybody
a couple
want
other questions. So
Yep, I see I see the punt, pass, and kick.
Yep.
I'll kind of start there. So Michael had asked for punt, pass, and kick if all athletes wear gloves, can disinfecting balls between turns be avoided. And I guess my statement would be I would recommend disinfecting balls, because even with athletes wearing gloves, if they were to wear gloves and touch their face, or you contaminate the gloves and then would contaminate the ball. And so that's been kind of the problem with when we talk about requiring gloves or recommending gloves, is the proper use and disposal of gloves that's what makes it effective. And I think it would be really hard to monitor some of that stuff. So I would still recommend disinfecting the balls between turns. And what we recommend is that you have 3 footballs, and then since they take 3 throws at one time, then you would disinfect the 3 at one time and then switch athletes, rather than just trying to disinfect one ball over and over and over again from that standpoint. Jody, I see, has asked about the registration deadline. All that stuff will be updated. Like I said, it won't be August 1st as far as the deadline goes. I think once we have an idea for date and what we need from the competition, that's when we'll get and the registration forms are ready. Then that's it will have a deadline clearly outlined from that side of things. I'll skip over, and Don, I don't know if you're reading the chat. If you want to read the one about if agencies decide not to follow guidelines and leave SOE, but continue to offer that sport during the season, will there be any ramifications in the future?
I can't see it. Can you read that again?
So the question is, hypothetically, if an agency decides not to follow guidelines and leave, per se, SOE, but continues to offer that sport during the season, will there be any ramifications in the future?
Well, whoever wrote that, we'll sick them on them. Yeah, I mean, it gets into a sticky situation to some degree because we have partners with YMCA and Park and Rec programs that run adaptive programming, and we're not going to tell them their rules of what they can and can't do. If they are doing it under the auspices of Special Olympics, then by all means, they need to follow the rules, and there could be repercussions for those agencies that don't follow rules. So I guess I don't have an exact answer. It's going to probably come down to specific situations. But again, we want to ensure that the athletes and the coaches are practicing safely. We will, and we have the authority to reprimand and suspend agencies if we have to. On the other hand, we're not in the business of trying to tick off all of our partners either. So I would say, again, we would have to look at something like that on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and I think really to have more details on how that's going to be offered, it's going to be beneficial for us to know if that's if that's the plan. But again, the biggest part of all of these things is these guidelines aren't meant to be intentional hurdles to just for the sake of doing them. They are with the thoughts of safety for all that's participating and involved in that. And that's not just the athletes, but it's also the coaches and parents and volunteers that are involved with that too. Hannah asked, who do I speak to about doing volleyball, bowling, and SOFIT? So obviously those sports will be listed on the sports resource page as far as guidelines. There'll be training plans for those sports. There's going to be rules for those sports, as well as more information about competitions if they do become available. You can also email the COVID email address. That will be. It's not just we'll take forms there, but we'll also be answering questions about anything return to play related, whether that's practice guidelines. If you're looking for supply, questions about supplies, or if you're asking about questions about the sports, we have a couple people monitoring that email address. So we will continue to do that, but I'm also happy to answer any questions, sports related as well, from those side of things too. But just to kind of make things a little easier from that side of things. Brittany, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say on a similar note, someone messaged me personally and just said, when are the guidelines coming out? I'm guessing you're referring to the rules. I believe the end of next week is our goal. And those will be posted on the website. So it'll be all on that COVID resource page. It'll all be listed there.
Yeah. And then I see, can we start bowling practice anytime? So our official return to play date is August 1st, correct? I believe that has not changed. So right. August 1st, you can start in phase 1 of practices. So that would be 10 people. That's including, like again mentioned, that includes coaches, volunteers. So based on the 3-to-1 to 4-to-1 ratio. So if you were to have 8 athletes out there, you would need 2 coaches out there with them, or chaperones. So
people had asked about doing some of the indoor sports earlier than October, and that's fine too. Again, just let us know your intentions. We want to work with you. It probably means if it's bowling, we're not going to start that bowling league probably until October. But by all means, if you can safely find a bowling alley and again, let us know. We're not there to kind of be the bad guys. We want to work with you and make sure that you're successful in whatever you do.
And I will say the good.
You may not be running the competition. Same thing with other sports. Like there could be somebody that I talked to one of the Madison coaches and they were interested in tennis. Well, if they're still interested in tennis, let's work on that. We can help them be successful with that. We probably won't run anything. But again, like any of these other sports, if there's something that somebody wants to do and it's a good idea, we'll help you do it. If there's enough interest, we can help generate and have maybe small invitationals. Again, we want to work with the local programs.
Yep. There's a couple here too. I see. Can athletes participate? I know Brittany answered this question, but can athletes participate in more than one sport during the new seasons? The answer is yes. The benefit of having the way we're set up is that we don't have some of the conflicting dates for events. And so if somebody would like to do all of them, that they're more than okay to do that. Again, practicing the guidelines and making sure we're doing in the phase categories of those type of things. There's so you could have people doing all 1, 2, 3, 4 events in the outdoor season plus SOFIT. if they want to stay that busy and there's resources for them to do so. The question came up of at what point would masks not be required, like phase 2, 3, 4, post phase 4 are not determined at this time. I think that answer changed a little bit now with the state mandate. Obviously, we'd follow the state mandate, and that's going through September 28th at this point. So that would overrule any of the mandates that we have in our guidelines at this point. But and I would say phase 4 would probably, I mean, phase 4 would probably not have masks, because that's going to be as close to normal as we possibly could be. So, Don, did you have anything to add on to that or no?
No,
So
that was great.
your head.
No,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's, again, these things, as we've seen, change, you know, the virus changes, the guidance changes, and so we're trying to do the best that we can, again, make sure everybody stays safe, and we're following rules that we have to follow and provide the best guidance that we can for the program. So yeah, at this point, it's going to be whatever that statewide. And it's the same thing with the guidelines. If we raise it up and we go into phase 2 and we're 50 and under, and you live in a community where they're saying, you know, we have a high number of cases right now, we're going to lock it down, and we would have to fall under that guidance at that point.
Yep. And I would also say, going back to some of these things, like bowling is going to be one of those ones where obviously you're going to be using a little bit more. No, I don't think anybody has bowling alleys in their houses. If they do, that's helpful. But you're probably going to be going to a public space, and those bowling alleys probably already have their own stuff in mind. I know a lot of them are doing additional disinfectant when it comes to shoes or balls, and they're leaving space for social distancing while bowling and all those type of things. So obviously, being respectful to them and following their guidelines as well. And like I said, we are we at this point we definitely have the rules ready to be prepared. We will have all the phasing stuff done very, very soon and up on the website. I'm still working on and developing each of the levels, virtual, and then phase 1, 2, 3, 4 for all the sports. Some of the sports I will tell you are easier to put into virtual competition and make it look very similar. Bowling seems to be a fun one to try to figure out how to do virtually at home, but like I said, it's time for us to think out of the box and maybe come up with some fun solutions for stuff like that. But I can definitely tell you that that we want to make sure that we offer that option for anybody who wants to choose to do that option too. So again, all this information is going to be, there's going to be a new SOE COVID webpage. It's going to include the sports information, the resources that we're talking about, the forms that we're including here, as well as the documents that have previously been sent out about guidelines and all of that type of stuff as well.
I did get one more question. If we are a school district program, whose rules trump, the district or SOWI? Worried that families will be upset if we can't participate since regular ed sports are.
Yeah, the guidance that we got from SOI on that is that it would fall under the schools, which is pretty much the way that we've managed a lot of the Unified Champions school programs, in terms of if it's on a school site, again, they have to follow those rules. It's a little tricky now as there's been some blending of our traditional agencies and our Unified Champions schools. So I would say, rather than give a blanket statement, if somebody has questions, let's follow up and we'll work with you on that. Again, we want to make sure that whatever the program does, we don't care, who they are, that you're following the guidelines. We don't want you to run afoul of the school. If you're having trouble with parents, we can maybe help work with that. So again, rather than give a blanket statement, technically it would be the school, but let's figure out, and we can work with you in the school on coming to the right answer.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, Don, then you'll move to the next slide. So the other part is we want to include in this is I just got another one. So is SOFIT separate sports activity or part of all sports? SOFIT, there's a separate SOFIT program, and like I said, Brittany will talk about the fitness and that type of stuff here, actually, right after I'm done talking about SOE Live. So we'll be on that one shortly. So I just want to plug, we started doing I mean, what was it back probably in April or May? I think probably April. We started doing a SOE Live broadcast, and the idea for SOE Live is to provide a Zoom call like this and make it interactive for athletes to participate in a variety of different things. And so we do have a way to virtually connect with athletes with programs around the state. And we do this on a weekly basis. So I just wanted to plug some of the SOE Live events that we have currently that we're doing regularly, and then hoping that you can join and then and maybe help spread the word to the athletes so that they know that these things are happening. So on Wednesdays we do our athletic director activity hour, and that's been a variety of different things. I know they've done trivia and bingo, and I think they did Family Feud recently, and then another really fun one is the scavenger hunts. Participated and tried to find stuff in my office, and really our athletic directors rotating on who's running these things, and so they each week they have a little bit of a different there's a different activity and there's a different flair to them, and I know people keep coming back and saying, hey, we're doing another round of scavenger hunt, and people are jumping onto that or jumping onto Family Feud, and we have good participation on that side of things, and that's really interactive because it is the participants are the athletes who are doing that. We have our sports cast, which are on Fridays. I think we moved them back to 1 p.m. now. Don and I host an interactive sports related show. We discuss topics around sports, debate each other, and argue with each other.
I always win.
Yeah. That's debatable. And so, and then we have some fun stuff like some quizzes and stuff for athletes to win prizes on that one. So that's been a fun one. Healthy at Home is something that Brittany's done, and it's typically been Thursdays. I know sometimes it swapped around just based on some scheduling stuff, but that has been a wide range of things from discussion of health and fitness topics. There was a cooking segment at one point. There's been workouts, and so that's a good one to join from a health and fitness standpoint. Wigging Out with Don and Tyler is done Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Don, you want to share what you guys talk about? It's pretty much anything, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a relaxing kind of hanging out and chatting. We talk about sports. We also just kind of check in with the athletes to find out what they've been up to, and it's really just a chance to kind of connect and hang out with some friends. So pretty low key.
Live Fitness, we've worked with some partners. I know we've shared links that like Anytime Fitness has done some workout stuff, as well as SOI has some fitness resources, and then we've also partnered with a gym in Madison. They've done some stuff, and done. There's kickboxing demonstration too that's been part of that. And so we will post those kind of as we have the ability to do those and resources to do those. And then Virtual Healthy Athletes is going through the different healthy athletes topics, and I know those vary a little bit based on our availability of our clinical directors. So what we always just recommend is take a look at our events calendar. We try to update those as long as or as soon as we know we have shows going on, and I know they're continuing to push those out on social media platforms. I see Laura had asked, will activity hour remain in the middle of the day or move to later as some of the others did? I mean, I think we've been trying to go back and forth and trying to test when time spots would work out for people, and know that some people aren't available during the day and some people aren't available later in the day, and we're kind of letting numbers dictate that. So I guess I wouldn't say that it's always going to be married to a 1 o'clock time slot or not, but I do. Right now, that's where it's currently at. It could change if we see that there's a high demand for it to change, but that's where we're trying to balance right now, is trying to figure out if a night show gets more people, or a day show gets more people, or an afternoon show or morning. And so that's been a little bit difficult to try to manage and do all those type of things. So we appreciate any input that people have. If there's some things that seem to work out better for athletes and agencies, and you know, we're more than willing to listen to input and change some things around. But right now, I think we're running with the 1 o'clock time slot until for the time being. So, and then Jenna wanted to plug too, if anybody has young kiddos 2 to 10, they can also do virtual young athletes practices or crafts. Jenna's been doing those weekly. So those are some great opportunities for anybody in that young athlete range as well. So again, feel free to check those out. We welcome anybody and everybody. There is a registration form just so we can prevent people, general public from joining some of those. And then we send the link out like we did for this. And then feel free to pass that information along to any athletes or families in your agency, because we'd love to see some more faces and new faces on those as well. Christine had asked, what if an athlete did not have emails? And that's a little bit harder because that's where we're going to communicate some of this information as far as the SOE Live stuff, because they will have to link to a Zoom. That's only the problem, is that there's a technology aspect that's needed in order to do these virtual shows. I mean, I would if they don't have an email, I mean, we have to find a way to get a link to them. So we could, if you want to talk to us directly, we can try to find a way to bridge that gap. It's just difficult to do with having to have a link for it. So, I don't know whether that answers your question, Christine, but we'd be willing to try to find a solution for that.
Hey, this is Jeannie Rovat, and so great to see you all tonight. And I work with the Athlete Leadership Group, and David and Megan and Edward all spoke at the top of the hour. And so I'll just cover this slide quickly. One of the great things that's happening right now is that all of this virtual is allowing us to reach athletes that we haven't before for athlete leadership. Why we really miss being together. It's very hard not being together for workshops. It is allowing people from all over the state that might have transportation barriers or other issues to be able to come together for leadership. So we have 2 current athlete leadership workshops that we're offering. They're both centered on health. And Megan and Edward talked about them at the beginning of the hour. The Athlete Health Messenger that focuses on the Fit 5, and then also the Athlete Health Messenger that we're collaborating with the UW Weizmann Center, and it's more about health research. Both of them allow the athletes to create their own health story, and they're very interactive. So I have my email at the bottom. Basically, we'll offer this for anybody that wants it. The best way to do it, if you're an agency manager or coach and you have 10 athletes that might want to take it, is just to call me, and then we'll set up the best time to do it. Otherwise, we'll just set up some general ones and allow individuals to sign up. So very exciting options, and would love to have you and the athletes in your agency attend. Thanks.
I'm trying to move it. There we go. Thanks, Jeannie. Now we'll go to fitness. And believe me, we are getting close to being done.
All right, so I want to talk about fitness. So I'm Brittany Hoig, for those that don't know me, Director of Health Programs. And I think Don alluded to it earlier in the call that fitness is going to be really important. And I do want to say it's always been important, but even more so right now, fitness is a big thing that we should be talking about. Obesity is listed as one of the high risk factors for COVID-19. And if we don't talk about it now, when are we going to talk about it? So I'm going to give some quick facts, and I'm not going to lie, they're kind of Debbie Downer moments, but they're important to know and to realize. So as of 2019, 78.8% of our athletes are overweight or obese. That's quite a shocking stat. It's higher than most states, and it's higher than the general population of Wisconsin. People with ID are 2 times more likely to die before age 50 than people without ID. And on a similar note, on average, a person with ID dies 16 years younger than someone without ID. People with ID are not dying earlier because they have ID. It's because they have another health issue going on, and one of those issues is being overweight or obese. So I just want you to take a minute and just think about those stats, because it's truly appalling. And we as staff, coaches, parents, it's our job to do something to reduce these numbers. So if you're wondering what we can do, the next slide are some options. So fitness in the fall. So here are a few things that we currently are doing and things that are coming up. So first and foremost, if you are on Facebook, I know some of you are, join our SOWI Fitness at Home Facebook group. You can really just search for SOWI Fitness at Home and it'll pop up. It's just a great place to learn some tips and tricks on physical activity, nutrition, hydration, get some motivation, hopefully, share successes that you guys are doing at home. I try to post daily, but I love it when other people post too, so it's not just me filling up the feed every time. And it's also a great place to socialize, especially right now when we're not able to see each other in person. It's just a nice way to keep in touch with people. So if you haven't already, join, and if you have and you like it, share with your friends, more the merrier. It's not just for athletes, coaches, parents. There's a bunch of staff on there, so join, it'll be great. Another thing we've been doing is some monthly fitness challenges. So I have one here on the slide, the July Fitness Challenge there in the purple and green. Each month I try to come up with a different fitness challenge. They vary on what they are, try to make them doable for everyone, every ability level, and anyone can do it, not just our athletes, but staff, go for it. Parents, coaches, agency managers, anybody is welcome to join. We've done fitness bingo. We're doing this July challenge on fitness. The August challenge is actually going to be on emotional wellness, which starts Saturday, August 1st. And for each of these challenges, there's a sheet that it's available online and also on the Facebook group. You print it off or download it or whatever it may be. Check it off and you can turn it in to me, or there's a fitness email as well. But then you're entered in for a prize, which is always fun. Everyone loves prizes. Another thing which Jeannie actually alluded to on the last slide was the Fit5. So Fit5, if you haven't heard of it, is a nice resource that SOI came out with. It focuses on 5 days of physical activity each week, 5 fruits and vegetables every day, and 5 bottles of water every day. So 5, 5, 5. Really trying to make it easy for everyone to remember. I know there's a lot of different things about how much you should exercise and how many bottles or cups or glasses or ounces of water you should drink. As long as you're trying, that's all that matters. So it's really trying to simplify it. So there's a Fit5 guide that gives you a lot more resources on it, but there's also some fitness cards that have specific exercises, endurance, strength, flexibility, balance, it's all there. And there's some really great videos too that walk you through it. So if you haven't already, check out our website. It has all that. And the COVID webpage that we'll also have a link to it as well. Next, I really want to talk about SOFIT because you probably have heard it throughout the presentation and some of you might be wondering what the heck it is. So SOFIT is an 8-week-long unified wellness program. It treats fitness like a Special Olympics sport. So you're getting together in person or virtually, either way, once a week, doing some sort of physical activity, and you're also learning something in a different area of wellness. Materials are provided to groups for that educational piece, so you don't have to be a fitness expert to run a SOFIT program. It is all laid out there for you. The exercise that you do, it could be anything from walking to yoga to whatever equipment you might have available to you. The program is very, 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 very flexible. So if you wanted to meet in person at a park and do yoga, or if you wanted to meet and do distant walking, you could do that. If you wanted to exercise on your own and get together and share what you did that week, you could do it that way too. If you wanted to get on a Zoom call like we are right now and do a workout together, that's a great option too. So it's very, very flexible on what you guys want to do. You can do it without equipment, you don't need anything, or if you have some, you can use it. The length of time of the session is flexible, just like your practices. If you wanted to get together more than once a week, you could. If you wanted to go longer than 8 weeks, you could. It's very, very flexible on what your group wants to do. If you're at all interested, let me know. I know a lot of you had filled that out on the intent to play, but if you're now realizing what this program is and you hadn't initially filled that out and now you're interested, no problem. Just shoot me an email. My info is on the screen. And then lastly, I want to talk about, this is relatively new, so it wasn't on the slides before, but we're also, in addition to the sport competitions that we're offering in the sports seasons, we will be having a fitness competition as well. So I haven't fully decided what it's going to be yet, so stay tuned for what that looks like, but it'll be things like push-ups, planks, things that you can do at home, on your own, without equipment, There will be instructions so that people are doing it safely, because that is a big concern. But all ability levels will be able to participate. SOFIT could be tied to this. It could be the training that leads up to this fitness competition, but it doesn't have to be so independent of SOFIT either way. There's lots of flexibility for fitness. We just want to encourage people to stay active. It's a great way to stay connected with each other, check in on each other and see how you're doing, especially during this time. There's a lot of other great resources too. Jason mentioned it earlier, but Anytime Fitness is a partner with Special Olympics. And if you just go, I've gone on their Facebook page. I don't know what their actual web page looks like, but their Facebook page has tons and tons and tons of workout videos. Variety of levels. Some are actually catered to Special Olympic athletes, which is awesome. And there's tons of great resources everywhere. If you have any questions related to fitness or want any guidance on where to go, what to do, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I want to do. So just let me know. My contact information is there. I'd love to talk more about it.
We lost connection on the slide deck, so just one sec.
I mean, honestly, I can just talk about the next one.
Yeah.
Were there any questions? I didn't see anything come through in the chat related to fitness before I just talk a little bit about coaches training. I don't think so. Okay, so while Don's pulling it up, oh, there it is. So as Don mentioned, we will be having these virtual coaches meetings or whatever you want to call them on a weekly basis. I know this slide says mandatory in bold, but we'll work with you. This isn't meant to be a roadblock. This is meant to be helpful. It's meant to answer your questions that come up week to week. It's meant to share best practices with each other. It's encouraged for all to join, but at least having one person from your agency would be helpful, just so we can share if new information comes up or things like that. So Don, did you want to add anything? What's that? No, they will not be this long. They will be more so a Q&A style, less presentation mode. So they will definitely not be this long. They will, for the time being, be Thursday nights at 7, just to keep it consistent. But that, we're flexible if things need to change. We will record those as well, I'm assuming, and we can send that out. So if for whatever reason something comes up, don't worry, we're not gonna ban you. We just want to have another resource for you guys if you have questions. On a similar note, we have kind of looked through a few different trainings that are out there right now on COVID. And the one that we came up with was our favorite, most informative, it's short, it's free, is the NFHS COVID training for coaches. So I took it, takes about 15 minutes. Like I say, it's free. We are requiring that at least one coach from each agency take this, just so that we know that you guys have information that you need to practice safely. Again, this is not meant to be a roadblock. This is meant to be helpful. Everyone is encouraged to take it because it's actually really informative. And there's no need to turn anything in. I can look it up on my end and add that to your that certification to your profile. So there's nothing really you need to do other than just take it. Don, anything to add on the?
Nope. I think that's it. Holy cow, we got through it. All right, so what we're gonna do, stop the share, see how many people have stayed with us the whole time. We know that was long, it was a lot of information, a lot to process. We're happy to answer questions now, or if somebody has comments. Like I said, we use the hand raise. We can unmute you if you're not comfortable and you'd rather talk personally later on. Email, call, anyone in the staff. We're all eager to work with you and help you through this process. To the
Looks
person,
like
yeah,
Bev Schmidt's
plans
raising
for
her hand.
practice. So I got one. Should they be emailing plans for practice? I guess it depends on what you mean with plan. I mean, we want to kind of know who's doing what sport and what they're doing. Again, it helps with our planning and it helps with just being able to support. So, I mean, I don't want to see your detailed plans of how you're going to run a bocce practice, but if you're going to do bocce and it wasn't on the intent to play, by all means. And again, if that's not clear, contact me later.
I just posted the email, someone had asked for it. So in the chat, if you're on the computer or whatnot, in the chat is the COVID@SpecialOlympicsWisconsin.org. So any and all questions can go there, as well as the release forms. And I did unmute you, Bev. It looks like you're unmuted if you have a question.
Yeah, we applied for the COVID supply money. How is that coming and where, and is it going to be sent to us, or how are we getting that?
Jody, Mark?
I unmuted you, Jody, I think.
Unmute.
There you go.
Okay, Mark must not be on there. Did you send, who did you send?
I can't unmute him. There you go. You're both are unmuted.
Michaela.
You sent it? No, Michaela?
I sent it to Michaela.
Okay. And she needs to be unmuted because she is the answer, Brittany.
I didn't get it because we don't have an office, so I said send it to the state office, but I never got any paperwork.
We'll double check on that, Bev, tomorrow, and I'll get back to you.
The
other
first time I
thing-
sent it to Michaela, the second time I sent it to the state office, and they were gonna check to make sure it got there.
Do you know
Okay.
who the state office of? Yeah, or Bev. I mean, the other thing is most of the staff have all been out for 3 weeks. And so, but we'll check on that tomorrow for you.
Okay, and then will it come directly to us, and will it be a check, or what kind of a way will it be?
It'll be put into your account, I believe. Right, Mark?
Correct, and then you'll get an email notification that you had received it. So when we receive it, we talk to the group. With COVID, it's different. We let Robin know to transfer the funds. As soon as that's done, we send you a notification that the funds have been transferred. And you treat it like everything else. You make sure that you have the receipts associated to it. But you'll get notified and it's automatically put into your account. If you do not have an in-house account, a check would be mailed.
Okay, we have an in-house account.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Looks like Savannah has a question. I'm going to unmute you, Savannah. If I can do this. There you go. Savannah, you should be unmuted.
Hi, I live in a group home right now, and I'm going to be leaving to move to Wapaka. And I was wondering, do I talk to my bigger coach to get everything transferred to a different county?
So you're in. So what? All right, Jody, do you know who Savannah is? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, she can contact me and I'll take care of it. She can email me. And then I let Sam know, and then I also notify the agency manager that she'll be moving there and to reach out and contact her.
Okay, is there a way you could send me an email right away? Because I don't have your email. I have no information.
I'm sorry, I don't know who you are.
Savannah, can you put your email in the chat, and then Jody can copy that maybe, or one of us can copy and get it to her.
All right, that sounds good. I can do that.
All right, it looks like, believe it or not, Mike Schultz has a question. Let me unmute Mike. Mike, you got 1 minute. Go.
Hey, I got a
lot from the SOE live shows.
I got a question. As far as the Special Olympics Wisconsin, when you click on sports offered, is that sports offered going to be changed with the new sports in?
Wow, did somebody pay you to ask that question? Because that's an awesome question. So actually, we talked to our marketing department, and they're going to kind of put a hold on all that. So you won't be able to access all those old things, the calendars, the sports offered, because it's all going to be, we want to direct everybody through the COVID page because that's got all the new information for the remainder of this year.
Oh, okay. I just asked that. I didn't know if that was going to be in the COVID page or not.
Yeah, so we'll update it. So you would just go to the COVID page, and that will be all the current sports that we're offering.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Great question.
Looks like a question in the chat about a maximum funds for COVID supplies, like the maximum that SOWI has. I think like how many grants are available? Is that
Mark.
Yeah. And I just replied, we look at the grants on a monthly basis to see how much is available. Since there's no competition currently going on, a lot of funds are available and there is sufficient funds to meet every agency's needs. We were very careful as to what, kind of putting a maximum on that. And we will still have plenty that once we start having competition, we should have funds available for that as well. So we are keeping a close eye to make sure that we have sufficient and meet all the needs.
I got a question sent to me. What if an athlete wants to compete, but they haven't received any information from their agency? Can they compete?
Yeah. So what I would do is have the athlete, the caregiver, guardian contact the agency directly and ask them what their plans are. I do anticipate that there could be some agencies that have different opinions of what they want to do and don't want to do. I would look at it similar to an agency that maybe doesn't offer, say, volleyball, and then the athlete wants to play volleyball, they would go to a neighboring agency. We always check with the agency manager first to make sure that they're taking people. And so I kind of look at it like that. Like if there's a group and they decide not to do anything and there's an athlete that wants to do something, we want to work with the athletes and find a place for them to fit in. And we want to do it in a way where, again, we always usually defer to the agency manager. So we want to make sure, again, that the agency that they would be transferring from for a short period of time would know and understand. And then that the agency that they would go to would be, again, have space, because there are some agencies that have spaces. So again, we want to try to work with everybody and work out those types of things. So I would say the first place would be to start with your current agency. Also work with your athletic director, whatever contact you have, they can fill you in on the other agencies and of who would be doing something. So I hope that answers your question. Again, contact us and we'll help you work through those types of things. No, I see the weekly. No, if you're not going to be starting right away, you don't have to attend the weekly meetings. We're really only looking at those that are going to actively participate in something. And again, we want to be there as a support. So if you're not doing anything, you don't have to join. If you want to kind of join and listen to see what other groups are doing that are participating, that's fine too. Again, it's like we want to work with you. So no, we're not going to make you come if you're not doing anything.
And then on a similar note, I got a question to me about the weekly meeting and do we need to register each week? So no, you do not. The link that was provided for tonight's meeting will work for all future meetings. We will also be putting it on the events calendar. So if you ever lose this email or whatnot, you can just head to our events calendar and the Zoom information will be right on the event. And then someone did ask about the estimated date for the like sports specific options. And I believe our estimated date was for staff to get things completed by the end of next week. Is that right, Don?
Well, we actually wanted to try to have the rules available this Friday. So again, we had a short amount of time to get a lot done. Whatever we have done will be available up on the website by the end of the day tomorrow. But at the very least, the 8th was the deadline for the fall outdoor sports. And then we're looking at trying to have all the indoor stuff by the end of August.
I kind of missed some indoor sports. Could you kind of fill me in on that?
How about we do that separately since everybody else has already sat through it? Well, Mike, I'll talk to you personally. We can go through it all, okay?
Okay, that works.
Looks like a couple hand raises in the chat or in the participant list. So let's start with Steve. I'm going to unmute you. I think you'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi. Yeah, we have myself and my mother and two other coaches, Gordy and Cindy Blackburn of Poynette, one of our local coaches. I sent them the link because they didn't get the link. I'm getting an echo from the other computer. It's like that. Can you send them an email for these links? The links.
Yeah, to the like the recording.
Yeah, and they're here now. They're here. They're here now. They've been listening, but.
Okay. Well,
yeah, if they, I just need an updated email. So I'm guessing the email they filled out maybe had a typo or something, which is probably why it didn't get sent through. So
yeah, they're from Poynette. We're local coaches, so they asked me if I can send a little question out for them.
Yep, that's great. And Steve, you can always forward the email that I sent to you to them as well, and so they'll have the link that way
Yeah,
too.
okay, I can do that.
Thanks.
All right.
Savannah, do you have another question, or did we not lower your hand from the first one?
I want to just let you know I did just send the email.
Okay.
That was so. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. TCL
I just unmuted. I'm not sure who that is. I don't see the video off the top of my head.
My question is there like ways that like kind of like on Fridays or like on the weekends we have like more time to like talk about things and stuff like that, because like people like have work, we all have work and stuff sometimes and stuff, and we don't have like all our answers questioned and stuff. Is there a way that we could have like different monthly meetings?
So maybe we can talk with Jeannie about that. We've been trying to find a way to maybe have the Athlete Input Council host one of the SOE Live meetings. You know, I will say it's really hard on the staff to be able to do those. I mean, Tyler and I do the one on Wednesday nights at 7 because I've got no life. But I will also say that there's a lot of athletes that probably knew a lot of this stuff before the coaches, simply because from some of those shows, they're not shy about asking what our plans were. And well, when we get asked point blank by the athletes, sometimes we let them know what's going on. And so, so yeah, why don't we talk more offline and try to find a time that would work where we can have, again, more athletes, and maybe we do it as part of the Wednesday shows. But again, it's important to me that we get the athlete voice. So let's try to brainstorm some better ways to do that. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Don.
Yep. All right. Anything else? I think that's it. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, or if you think of things afterwards, again, please let us know. Work with, your athletic directors if that's your primary contact. Contact any of us. We're here with you all along the way. We appreciate a 2 hour of your time for this. I can't thank all of you enough for what you do in terms of the volunteers, the local programs, the agencies, and the coaches, the time that you give. We thank you immensely for all of that. And we're going to get through this. It's not been easy, and it probably will still have some hurdles along the way, but we will persevere. Any staff, anybody else have any parting words? Again, this is not, I probably spoke the majority of the time, but have done the less amount of the work. It's the rest of the staff and the SOE team that have really put their heads together and come up with some novel ideas, and doing this all for the athletes again. No? All right. Well, adios, amigos. Until next week. Thanks, everybody. Nice seeing everybody.